A lot of people achieve success, but at the expense of their health and sometimes relationships. I believe you can be successful, have an amazing lifestyle, and deep connections. I call this aligned success. In this episode, I break down what aligned success means to me and the 4 components. Welcome to the Abundance Hack Show, where we are inspiring you to ditch the outdated beliefs, release the blocks, and fully embrace your sovereignty so you can confidently expand to allow more love, joy, and aligned success in your life. I am Niajae, your conscious accountability partner, reminding you that abundance is your birthright. Hey M&Ms, thank you for tuning in to the Abundance Hack Show. What are you manifesting in your life today? In this episode, we are going to discuss aligned success. So this is actually a term that I've coined and I've created a definition. So I'm going to share with you what aligned success means to me, the 4 components, and 6 questions you can ask yourself to find out if the action steps you're taking are aligned. So what is aligned success? My definition is when you set and achieve goals according to your values, healthy boundaries, desires, and your purpose. So why is this important? When we think about success, we think about happiness. Why do people want to be successful? It's because they think it's going to make them happy. So let's first break down happiness. We have 2 different types of happiness. We have hedonic and we have eudaimonic. So hedonic happiness stems from the word hedonism, which is all about pleasure, self-pleasure. So you want to be successful so you can buy yourself the big house and the car and the boat and take all the vacations and have designer clothes, designer shoes. I'm all about the designer shoes. So this is all about self-pleasure. And then you have eudaimonic happiness. So eudaimonic is where you want to serve, you want to give back. These are your healers. These are the people that are sharing their gifts with the world to make an impact. They're trying to make a difference in the world, make the world a better place, and they receive happiness and fulfillment from serving. So I've been on both ends of the spectrum. I have had a thriving business where I'm making 6 figures and I'm taking exotic vacations and I have designer shoes and designer purses, and I achieved all of the material things that I had on my vision board at the time. And then when I received all these things, I'm like, okay, now what? Like, this is what society tells me is going to make me happy, but I don't think I'm very happy. I don't feel fulfilled. And so I went back to the drawing board and I'm like, okay, I have to figure this thing out. Like, what is going on here? So I started serving. I started giving back. I started sharing my gifts with the world. I started trying to make an impact in my own way. And I wind up becoming burnt out. So I'm like, okay, well, I still have basic needs that I need met for myself, and they're not being met because I'm giving so much. So I'm like, okay, let me go back to the drawing board, being on both ends of the spectrum, and find that happy medium. Because I believe life is an ebb and flow. We give, but we also receive. So finding that happy medium, to me, is what aligned success is all about. So making sure that you are showing up and sharing your gifts with the world, you're serving your purpose, you're making a difference, you're inspiring people and serving in your own unique way, and also making sure that your basic needs are met, making sure that you are fulfilling your personal desires as well. And I think this is a really huge topic because there's a lot of healers or a lot of coaches, for example, that like to say, oh, I don't need much, I'm just here to serve. You're not just here to serve. Life is meant to be abundant. You are an abundant, powerful being, and the universe wants to give you everything that you desire. So it's not just, come here, serve, give us all all your gifts and serve your purpose and then go along your way. No, like, you're supposed to enjoy the journey. So finding that happy medium. So that is why I created this term, aligned success. So let me give you the definition one more time. It's when you set and achieve goals according to your values, healthy boundaries, desires, and your purpose. So how exactly do you achieve aligned success? So I broke it down into 4 components, and we're going to start with values. Values are so important. The first step is to define your values. What does integrity mean to you? What is integrity in your business? What does that look like? What are your limits? Knowing your values is so important in business, because business will challenge you, and it's going to be like, okay, how bad do you want it? How far are you willing to go to get it? And having your values and having your sense of integrity is important. Being able to define it and communicate it is also important. So I'll tell you a really quick story. I used to sing way back in the day. And, it's common for artists to sleep with producers and songwriters and, record label execs to get ahead. We're all adults here, let's be real. It happens. And one of the things that I said, the value and the sense of integrity that I had is, if I can't get there the honest way, I don't want to get there at all. So there's a limit in what I'm willing to do to gain success. So I give you an example because I like to give you personal examples where I have actually experienced this in my life. But you think about how people climb to the top, and sometimes they step on people, so to speak. It's a figure of speech, but what are you willing to do to gain success? What are you not willing to do to gain success? So really defining your values is going to not only offer clarity along the way, but it's also going to help you speak to your audience and the type of people that you attract. So I say audience, but your clients maybe, or the type of people you do business with. When you can clearly define your values and your sense of integrity, you will have a clearer picture of the type of people you want to work with, the type of opportunities you're willing to take, the type of situations you find yourself in. So that's step number 1, is defining your values. Step number 2 is identifying your desires. Identifying your desires are so important. Sometimes people get stuck in this space of just existing. They're just floating in the breeze. And that's not what life is about, in my opinion. I think that the universe wants to give us everything we desire, so we have to know what we desire in order for the universe to provide it. Pretty simple, right? It's a simple concept, but I know that we tend to lose sight of our desires. We tend to lose sight of what it is that we truly want. So really identifying your desires, your visions, and your goals. Because I believe with goals, it's nothing wrong with wanting the big house and the car and the boat and the vacations and the designer shoes. Designer shoes? Of course, it's okay to want the designer shoes. But here's a really powerful question I want you to ask yourself. Are you living to win, or are you living to not lose? So this was inspired by one of my favorite movies, but let me ask it again. Are you living to win, or are you living to not lose? Because that answer to that question is going to shape how you show up in the world. So are you just existing? You're working so you don't struggle. You're working so you don't starve. You're working so, you have a roof over your head, and that's it. Or are you working because you want to eat decadent food? Are you working because you want to take amazing, exciting vacations? Are you working because you want to treat yourself to something really nice, buy a nicer house, buy a nicer car? Are you working to set goals to fulfill your desires, or are you just working to get by? Really powerful question. So I invite you to revisit your desires. What is it that you truly want? So I always say this, when you ask yourself, what is it I truly want? Ask 3 times, because there's going to be a layer of what society says you should want. There's going to be a layer of what your parents say you should want, and then there'll be a layer of what you think you're worthy of. And sometimes we have to improve on our self-worth because we are abundant, magical beings, but we lose sight of that. So remembering that abundance is your birthright. And once you remember that, then ask yourself one more time, what is it I truly desire?
If you were looking for a sign,
Here it is. This is your reminder to not settle, to know your worth, and to follow your bliss. This is a reminder to maintain alignment and show up in your fullest expression. Abundant and Aligned Society is an accountability program to remind you that you are a powerful being and you deserve to live the life you truly desire. Go to niajae.com/society to join in on the magic, because life is meant to be abundant. Number 3 is purpose, identifying how you want to serve, making an impact, and sharing your gifts with the world. So we are here for purpose. And I remember the first time I received a download that I'm a vessel and I'm meant to teach. And I did not like it, so I tell this story on one of my podcast episodes, but I didn't like it. But the reality is we are here to serve. We are here to make an impact. We're here to learn lessons and probably teach those lessons to someone else. We're here to overcome some type of generational pattern, and when we do, we impact the generations to come, and we also release the past generations. So we are here to serve. Everyone's journey looks different. Everyone's gifts are different. Everyone's path is different, but the reality is we are here to serve. So really identifying your unique purpose, so powerful, and you feel it. When I started working towards my purpose, I felt it in my body. Like I felt the energy run through my body, like chills, goosebumps, however you want to explain it. So really working towards your purpose, that's what's going to give you that internal fulfillment. So we have external happiness, like, you know, people say money doesn't buy happiness. I do believe money doesn't buy happiness. Money only magnifies what we truly feel. So there's an internal happiness that we have from fulfilling our purpose. And then we also do gain happiness and excitement from external things. So there's nothing wrong with wanting external things. And that's why I say aligned success. So having a clear vision of the end of the spectrum where you're making sure that you feel good and you're happy and your needs are met, and making sure that you're serving. So the last one is boundaries. Boundaries are so important. So identifying your healthy boundaries, what's a hell yes, and having a solid self-care regimen. So setting healthy boundaries is extremely important in every single relationship. Everything from family, especially family, everything from business, everything from romantic, friends. Setting healthy boundaries is extremely important. And even if you don't communicate them to other people, having those healthy boundaries like to yourself in your mind is extremely important, and knowing when you're giving too much of yourself. So again, my favorite quote, you can't pour from an empty cup. You have to take care of you first. So knowing when to say no, knowing when your cup is kind of depleted and you need time for self-care, not overextending yourself, not overexerting yourself, not allowing yourself to become burnt out. It's so extremely important. And then one of the things that I've started basing my life off of, and this happened, I went to Costa Rica, and this was from like Christine Van Loo, long time ago. When was that? I don't know when it was. But I went to Costa Rica, and she said, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. And ever since then, I've been trying to implement that into my life. And since I've become a lot more attuned to energy, now I can ask myself, like, is this a hell yes? And I feel it in my body. And if I don't feel it, or if I'm on the fence, I trust my intuition. I'm like, it's a no. If something's like, I don't really know, if I'm kind of indecisive about something, it's a no, because we know at our core what's best for us. We know what, and when I say, let me just say, we know what's best for us, but even in situations where we were a hell yes, it may not turn out how we pictured, because sometimes there's a lesson in it that we don't see right away. So I just want you to know that, because we have situations where we'll get into a situation and we think this is the right situation, and then it doesn't turn out how we expect, and then we stop trusting ourselves. But the reality is everything that we choose for a reason, because there's a lesson. So I hired a coach, for example, that wind up not working out, but I checked in and I'm like, how do I feel about this? And I was a hell yes. And so the situation with the coach didn't work out. However, sometimes contrast creates clarity. And I needed to see what I saw to have clarity in my business. So even though it wasn't like, oh, this is gonna be like the best coach I've ever had in my life, it still was a situation that offered me a tremendous amount of clarity, which is something that I needed to move on to my next step. So every situation is an opportunity to learn. So really checking in, because your inner being knows, because your intuition or your higher self knows, checking in, how do I feel about this? Is this a hell yes? And if it's not, if you're on the fence, don't do it. And you have the right to say no. So knowing that you have the right to say no, setting your healthy boundaries, even if it's like a friend and you say no, saying no without feeling bad, because ultimately you want to be able to show up your best for the people in your life, whether that's your friends, your partner, your children, your family, your coworkers, your staff, your team, whatever it is. You want to show up for them the best version of you. And that requires self-care. That requires knowing when not to overextend yourself. So saying no, and don't feel bad about it, because you have your healthy boundaries and your values in line. So the last part of that is the self-care regimen. So making sure that you are taking time for you, making sure that you are prioritizing your self-care. I know so many entrepreneurs that are burnt out, they're exhausted, they're running on 40%. What if you ran at 100%? What magic can you create if you are well rested, fully hydrated? Do you know how many Americans, like 80% of Americans are dehydrated? Like, it's insane. We have gotten used to operating dehydrated and under, like, what is the word? Malnutrition. Like, we're not eating proper diets. I mean, obviously, like, our food has so much junk in it these days. That's a whole nother story. But making sure you're taking supplements to make sure that your body's getting what it actually needs, making sure you're hydrating, making sure you're moving your body, making sure you're getting the proper amount of rest, making sure you're taking time for some form of meditation or energy healing or clearing, so you're showing up the best version of yourself. When I had my brick and mortar business and I was working myself to death, basically, like, I wasn't showing up the best version of myself. And I deserve to see the best version of me, and so does my clients, and so did my staff. So making sure that you're taking care of you is so extremely important. All right, so really quick recap. We have 4 components to align success. Number 1 is values, defining your values. Number 2 is desires, identifying your true desires. Number 3 is purpose, identifying how you are serving in the world. Number 4 is boundaries, identifying your healthy boundaries, knowing when to say no and not feeling bad about it, because that is your right, knowing what's a hell yes. So those are the 4 components to align success. All right, so I have 6 questions that you can ask yourself to identify if what you're doing is in alignment. So the way my brain works is I like to have a framework. So that's just how my brain works. Now, I used to say it's a Capricorn thing. I like lists, I like frameworks, I like, a set of questions I could ask myself to know if I'm on the right track. I used to say that it was a Capricorn thing, but my partner actually thinks that I am a Sagittarius. So maybe it's a Capricorn and Sagittarius thing. I don't know. But anyway, the way my brain works is that I like to have a framework. I like to have a set of questions that I can ask myself, journal on, to find out if what I'm doing is right for me, if it's in alignment. Sometimes your answers can come to you in the form of journaling. So here's the 6 questions that I invite you to ask yourself. Number 1 is, does this go against my values? So I had a moment in my coaching career where I was like, something is feeling icky here, and I need to pinpoint exactly what it is, because I want to make sure that I'm showing up in the world according to my values and my level of integrity. So what someone else does is none of my business, no judgment. I'm working on non-judgment. I'm working on non-judgment, which is why, the whole unleash thing, if you caught the last podcast episode where I interviewed Yarixa about the unleash movement, it's all about non-judgment. So I've really been working on releasing judgment. So what someone else does is none of my business. I don't base what I do according to what someone else does. I base it on my value system and my level of integrity. So the question is, does this go against my values? But of course, you have to know what your values are. You have to know where your specific level of integrity is in order to answer that question. So definitely write down what are my values. The second question is this in alignment with my goals? So really setting goals that are in alignment with what you truly desire. So asking yourself 3 times, what do I truly desire? And then when you're making decisions or you're taking on opportunities or making connections, is this in alignment with my goals? Number 3 is this a hell yes? Is this a hell yes? When you think about an opportunity or a situation or a person, do you feel it in your body? Do you get like little goosebumps? Are your hairs raising on your arm? Like, is this a hell yes? Get back to the point to where you're excited about whatever you're doing. So stop existing and start living, and then take it one step further and start thriving. So is this a hell yes? If it's not a hell yes, it's a no. So stop engaging in mediocre activity. Oh, that's a good quote. That's a good quote right there. Stop engaging in mediocre activity. Yes. I love it. Okay, so number 4 is, am I allowing myself to receive? There are so many people that have resistance and blocks to receiving. So many reasons. It could be guilt, it could be worthiness. I mean, the list goes on as to why. And if you're listening to this podcast, I know that you believe in abundance. So am I allowing myself to receive? Am I allowing myself to take in all that I could handle, and how can I expand to take in even more? Because think about it, the more you receive, the more you can give. So the more that your cup is overflowing, the more you have to give to others. So if you're someone who wants to serve, just think about the bigger impact you can make the more you allow yourself to receive. So really powerful question. Am I allowing myself to receive? Do you have resistance or blocks to not allow yourself to take in? Because it is an ebb and flow. In order for us to give, we have to keep replenishing our cup. Number 5 is this in alignment with my purpose? Really powerful question. When you're making decisions and taking action steps and engaging with people and doing things, is this in alignment with my purpose? And if it's not, is it worth your time and energy? Really powerful question. And last but definitely not least, am I operating from fear and scarcity or alignment? Whew, that is a powerful question. If you don't take anything else away from this, this is probably the most powerful question. Am I operating from a place of fear and scarcity, or am I operating from a place of alignment? So powerful, because sometimes we let our fear lead us and then we're getting into situations that are not really right for us. But if you're getting into a situation or operating from a place of alignment, you're on your path, you're on your journey, and you're gonna feel it. It's gonna feel, for me, it feels tingly in my body. I know that it shows up for everyone different, but I know when I'm making a decision or I'm taking on a certain opportunity, I know when it's right, and really trusting that. So you have to fine tune it and start listening to yourself and your intuition a little bit more. But once I started, it's like now my intuition, if it's not right for me, I can't do it. My body's like, no ma'am, no ma'am. All right, so really quick recap of the 6 questions or journal prompts that you can ask yourself to make sure that you're taking aligned action. Number 1 is, does this go against my values? Number 2 is this in alignment with my goals? Number 3 is this a hell yes? Number 4 is, am I allowing myself to receive? Number 5 is this in alignment with my purpose? And number 6 is, am I operating from fear and scarcity or alignment? So I hope you found value in this. If you found value in this, definitely let me know. It's always good to hear because I put so much effort and energy into this podcast. So it's definitely good to hear that you found value in this. If you know someone that needs to hear this, definitely share the episode. And if you want more, if this is like so good and you're like, yes, give me more, then you can enroll in Abundant and Aligned Society, where I'm actually texting you. I'm texting you 3 times a week to make sure that you are maintaining alignment. So if you're caught up in a situation that's not feeling right, you'll receive a text message from me that'll remind you to not take on things that are not in alignment with your purpose, with your goals, with your true desires, because you are an abundant being. I want to see people thriving. I want to see people stepping into their sovereignty and owning their gifts and living the best life that they can possibly live, because there's always more to explore. There's more love we can take in. There's more joy we can take in, more passion and excitement. So we just have to expand to allow more in. We have to expand so we can receive. So yeah, if you want a little bit more accountability, because this was so good, then join Abundant and Aligned Society so I can be your conscious accountability partner. Thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time, be decadent. Thank you for tuning in to the Abundance Hack Show. I would love to hear from you. Leave your comments and questions, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of our yummy episodes. Every time you leave a 5-star rating or review, I do my happy dance.